Welcome to Magic the Flavouring, the Magic the Gathering podcast, where we talk about all things Magic, flavour design and lore. I'm your host, Andy Mann.
Hello, this is Nathan Canson.
And today we have a very special guest, a long-awaited guest. He is a member of the Commander Advisory Group. He is a member of the Wizards of the Coast broadcast team. He is a proprietor, is that the word?
Proprietor.
Thank you, of the finest gaming bar in London, nay, the UK, nay, Europe, the world. I can't verify that. I barely go outside of Europe. But most of all, most importantly, Nathan, he is, dare I say, a friend?
We have friends.
We do. He can refute this if he needs to. Mr. Tim Willoughby, welcome to the show.
Hello, my friends.
Hello.
I was referring to the listeners, but also to
Jesus.
you. Also to you.
Oh, we're done. We're already over. We are recording once again in my lovely boat, hence why there will be sounds of like birds going by and joggers and God knows what else. Foghorns. So, and also this is the first ever time we're recording with 3 people around one microphone. So who knows how this is going to sound. But it's been a long time coming. We tried to get you on this podcast a few times, but you're a busy man.
There's a lot of buns in a lot of ovens, a lot of pans and a lot of fires.
Yeah.
But we've managed to make it work.
Yeah.
We've got a good topic for today, I think.
Yes, we absolutely do.
Another thing that's been a long time coming.
Yes, I had no idea where you were going with that.
Yeah,
We've been a little...
Accurate segue. That's
yeah,
what
it
that
is a good
was.
segue. I
Thanks.
thought it was something a little bit randier. But
No.
no, it is a good segue. We are talking today about Commodore Guff.
Yay.
Not Lord of the Rings. That's all the hype right now.
No, we never talk about what's going on
No,
now.
well, we can't be asked. But today we're talking about Commodore Guff. He's finally got a card.
Nearly.
Nearly.
Soon.
Yeah,
I
soon.
don't know when this goes out, but...
This will be going out the week that we record it, so you are more accurate. He is going to soon have a card in the upcoming... Is it Commander...
I think it's Commander Masters
Precons. Yeah, I almost said Commander Legends.
The ones that are going to be really expensive.
Yeah.
They decided to do a new sliver.
Yeah.
A new Eldrazi.
And the reason that we've got you on now, Tim, because we've been playing Magic together, and we've been playing at your various incarnations of your wonderful gaming bar now for a good few years, like ages now.
I mean, time is a river that we can't navigate anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, for ages.
I mean, I'm pretty sure anyone who listens to this podcast could timestamp the first time we name dropped yourself and Gav, and then every time subsequent, and we've been playing there years before we've done that. But your favourite character, I don't know if favourite character is the right word, but the one that you're most intrigued by.
No, it's my favourite character.
Okay, good.
Commodore Guff is rad, and by the end of this, hopefully you'll all agree.
Yeah, because not a lot of people do. He's a divisive character.
I think it's just I don't think everyone knows him quite like I do, which is reasonable because I think he's not had a fair shake of it thus far, and arguably I'm not sure he's getting that fair a shake of it going forward.
Interesting. All right, so let's just do a little bit of a rundown of Commodore Guff, who the character is before we talk about the card that has been revealed for Commander Masters, and then we'll be moving on to what Tim, as a Guff Uber fan, an Uber fan of Guff. There's no funny way of saying that.
Gafor.
It should be a Gafor.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I don't like that. You've come up with your own designs for Commodore Guff.
Yes,
but we'll get to it.
We need the narrative
We can have
the cards, because
Exactly.
the narrative should explain the cards and vice versa.
Yes,
Exactly.
absolutely. So here's my super quick rundown of who Commodore Guff is, and then Tim, with any information or any sort of knowledge that you have of the character, you can jump in with some deeper lore. So Commodore Guff is an old walker, and was part of the group of 9 Titans that Urza grouped together, 9 Titan Planeswalkers, to defeat the original Phyrexian invasion. Commodore Guff is one of those weird characters because he is aware, seemingly, potentially aware, of the fact that they are in at least a multiverse, if not a fictional multiverse, because there's a lot of fourth wall breaks. In all the books that Commodore Guff has appeared in the comics, they always do a bit of a Deadpool before Deadpool was doing Deadpool, and do fourth wall breaks. He lives in a hidden library, and so his whole shtick is about books. You might have seen him on card arts of things like Index is a card art that he's quite famous for. Any other, Nathan, off the top of my head?
World Research.
World Research, yeah, all those kinds of guys. Basically, he's the big ginger guy with the monocle and a big robe. So you will know if you see this character. And now he's got a Planeswalker card. What about this character draws you to him?
So, part of it, like, he looks rad. Like, if you look at Wild Research or Planeswalker's Mirth, he's on Index as well. I think literally we've now mentioned every single card he's been referenced.
Yeah, he's not been in many.
Diversionary tactics.
Oh, all right, diversionary tactics. Look at that.
Yeah, like he's not in many cards. Of the 9 Titans, he was to some extent the comic relief.
Yeah.
But the reason he was the comic relief was because, like, in principle, he lives in this library that's got every book that's ever been written or ever will be written, and he's read all of them. So he knows how the story ends.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert for a book that came out in 2001. Essentially, he is able to be pivotal in stopping the Phyrexian invasion by literally taking a history book for the future and rewriting it. Not to make it a spectacular success, but to make it possible that they could win, where previously it was not possible they could win. He literally changed history by rewriting the books. And yeah, within the sort of lore, and I first was introduced to him by one of the editors for Magic, who also has a massive thing for thinking Commodore Guff is amazing, that essentially this is the character that has not only realised that they're in a book. So in the books, there's various bits where he makes reference to the editor of the book that he's in.
Yeah.
That was like the first set of fourth wall breaks. But it's at least within headcanon, if not real canon, that he has come to realise that he is a character in a collectible card game called Magic the Gathering. And as such, he's got a very laissez-faire attitude to things. Because he's like, you know what? Everything goes wrong. I am just a character that's been devised for this card game. And that's all. And so, like, where you see him being very jolly and Planeswalker's mirth and so on, effectively that's his coping mechanism for the fact that he's come to be truly, maybe not omnipotent, but omniscient.
Yeah.
That he can see everything and see how it all fits together. And, like, as such, he's a really interesting character within the whole of the pantheon of... even within the 9 Titans.
Yeah, because you have people like, is it Tevesh Zat was one of the 9
Tevesh Zat was one of the
Titans,
nines,
as
yeah.
was Lord Windgrace was one of them?
Windgrace, Freyalise, Christina.
Yeah, it's all these big hitters in Magic lore, and also, if we're talking from a, like, we're all Commander players, so, like, in terms of Commander Magic gameplay, they're all big names that people recognise from those sort of...
Like, most of them in made into cards yet?
Yeah, and also pretty, like, I mean, Windgrace and Freyalise, and arguably Tevesh Zat have been pretty notorious Planeswalkers themselves.
We haven't had a Bolivar, a Daria, or a Christina.
Well, Bolivar at least is coming out the same time as Commodore Guff. I don't think we've seen what he does yet.
No.
But, like, I think that... So the new product that's coming out is essentially a Commander deck where Commodore Guff's the face card, and I think that it is a nod to some of these 9 Titans that haven't seen a card yet. I can't imagine that just based on the colours, that it'll have all of the Titans in. That would be weird and not really right. But there'll be at least a few of them in there. So for them completionists that are looking for all of the 9 Titans, we might get a little bit closer.
Nice. Cool. Do we know what this Guff card does, Nathan? Have you got it in front of you?
Yeah, I do.
Excellent. Right, so this is the card that got revealed when they did a little sneaky peek of Commander Masters. What, like 2 months ago, something like that?
Yes, and I've been frothing ever since.
So yeah, we got the card.
What
does it do? Top to
Commodore Guff, a generic blue, red, white for a legendary Planeswalker Guff. What a line of text. At the beginning of your end step, put a loyalty counter on another target Planeswalker you control. +1 to create a 1/1 red wizard creature token with tap, add a red, spend this mana only to cast a Planeswalker spell. -3, you draw X cards, and Commodore Guff deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of Planeswalkers you control. Commodore Guff can be your commander, and it starts with 5 loyalty.
Cool. So, I mean, nothing jumps out to me to be particularly broken or egregious.
Not a bad card.
Not
Not a great card. A somewhere in the middle card.
All right. Well, tell you what, let's go from the top down and maybe talk about each individual section and, like, you know, the colours, the text box, all this kind of thing. Maybe talk about what is not quite right, maybe what works about this card, and then maybe we'll expand into your own thoughts and feelings about what Commodore Guff should do. So, first of all, I mean, 4 mana Jeskai. What do you think about that?
Is 4 mana too low for a Planeswalker of that power?
Do you reckon?
I mean, I think that for the text on the card, 4 mana is probably fine, and Jeskai is the right colours.
Yeah.
Like, all of the cards that he's ever been on have been a mix. So, like, Wild Research being the best example is effectively a Jeskai card. And he's impulsive, red, cool, fine with that. He knows a lot of stuff, yeah, blue, cool with that. And ultimately, he is trying to look out for everyone else, white, yeah, fine with that. Like, I can't, he's not green or black. So
Sure.
I think it makes sense that he is the colours he is. That much so far, fine.
Cool. But yeah, I mean, for the card itself, 4 mana is fine, but we're saying maybe for the character, I mean, they're an old walker.
Yeah, I mean, consider the difficulty. So, because I guess the idea, right, is when it comes to mana cost for Planeswalkers, is that the amount that it kind of takes for you to gain their loyalty. Because for someone like, say, the new Urza Planeswalker card, it takes you having the creature and the Might and Weak Stone, and then combining them together to be able to, bring him about and put him onto the battlefield on your side. I guess you could argue that he's more likely to want to join your side, so 4 mana is probably as much as he'd charge you.
Sure. Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. I think that's all correct. I think that's pretty good.
I think the basic line is going to be that you can't make we're not going to be able to make a Guff that's as powerful as an old walker Guff might necessarily be.
No, I mean we'll
get there. We'll get there.
But I mean, if you look at what they've done, especially in recent Magic history, I mean, if you look at Aftermath, even in this narrative, they've gone so far against the idea of having Planeswalkers at all. Like they've literally thrown them in the bin. So I think
defensible. I think.
Oh, absolutely. They've had their time.
I mean, honestly, in some respects, because again, spoiler alert for a book that came out in 2001, Commodore Guff dies in Apocalypse. Like he essentially puts himself in a position where he knows that he's going to die. He's fine with it. He's seen the future anyway. It's fine. But yeah, he dies during that whole fight against Yawgmoth and similar, and that means that he's only ever lived, at least within the narrative, as an old Planeswalker.
Sure.
And arguably, all the old Planeswalkers are so powerful that they should never be cards.
Yeah.
Because they essentially can do anything.
They're minor gods, essentially.
Arguably not even minor,
yeah.
but yes.
Yeah. Cool, alright, it's not bad. Legendary Planeswalker Guff. I mean, that's funny in itself.
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't think that's funny is kidding themselves.
Like, we're not really sure whether or not Commodore is
that a name?
Is it a name or is it honorific? So I looked up what a Commodore is.
Right.
Which is, it's the naval rank between captain and rear admiral.
As much as he has a naval, I assume he does anyway, I don't think he commands a naval fleet.
Yeah, naval fleet is he?
They never reference him caring about or having any boats.
Because interesting, because Bolivar came from a pirating background, right? When he was like was it Crucius or something like that?
Yeah.
Because I think there's an arena cards, annoyingly, an alchemy card. I think that's Crucius or something like that.
I started playing Magic at around the time of Dragon's Maze, so yep, I'm going to say yep to that.
Well, you're digging deep, yeah, exactly.
I mean, it is a deep. I'm glad they've done a deep cut card. Like it's the one that everyone wanted. All right. Now we get into the meat. At the beginning of your end step, put a loyalty counter on another target Planeswalker you control as a static ability. Firstly, is this right for Guff, yes or no?
I mean, he's helpful to other Planeswalkers. I don't think that it's necessarily what he's all about. Like, I don't feel like we only ever really see him interacting with other Planeswalkers, but that's just happenstance to the narrative, really. I don't think that he's like he's quite pragmatic about the fact that look, we're going to lose. I respect the books enough that I'm not going to jump in the way of this, and kind of has to get convinced otherwise over the course of the invasion cycle of books. But he's part of the Nine Titans, so clearly he's not opposed to hanging out with other Planeswalkers, but he doesn't strike me as someone that's all about Planeswalkers. No. I'd say he's more all about books and knowledge.
Yeah, I kind of agree. It seems like a crowbar into something to make you want to play other Planeswalkers, because he was part of a group of them.
This is very much a Planeswalker deck card.
Yeah.
Commander. I mean, one of the things I saw people talking about is that all he had to do really to kind of add this idea of manipulation or knowledge or future knowledge is just add a scry 1 to that first ability. At the beginning of your end step, scry 1 and add a loyalty counter. Because imagine if you don't have another Planeswalker, because it's another as well, right?
He doesn't do anything.
He can't do it by himself. So at least you'd be able to scry. It kind of creates that little bit of blue knowledge kind of in there. There is a draw of cards coming down, but I mean, I feel like maybe that scry aspect might have been, or even a fate seal, because obviously he can manipulate other people's fates as well. Because that could be considered like the adding a loyalty is him kind of giving more longevity to another ally. I mean, if we're really stretching to make the card fit the narrative.
Well, what are they trying to do with this Guff card? Because each Planeswalker, as we've seen them at least in recent years, has been a very distinct, this is them at this point in their life. The fact that we've got so many different Ajanis and Sarkans, and Elspeth's another great example where it's Elspeth on New Capenna. It's Elspeth when she's now an angel. Is this a Guff who's in the Nine Titan arc, or is this Guff just at any other time?
That's a good point, right? Because he is just randomly in his library. So this is almost like maybe even Commodore Guff before he gets enrolled into the Nine Titans.
Maybe.
Potentially. Because, there isn't necessarily anything here that feels like it's specifically story relevant.
No.
This definitely feels like we need to make a Planeswalker card and make it not suck, so let's give it a way to at least bonus up and boost up another fellow Planeswalker.
Now that we're 4 years deep into static abilities on Planeswalkers, the first appearing on in War of the Spark.
Years,
and do you know, I remember that so well because
so
Nathan and I did the pre-release at Magic Madhouse, which is what your Barrel Zero was like the previous iteration. And then we all went to Magic Fest London. It was the midnight pre-release. And then we all went to Magic Fest London for 3 days the day after. So I remember War of the Spark like it was yesterday. How, as players, what is it really that big of a deal?
I think that, I think specifically in War of the Spark, they screwed the pooch a little bit with a bunch of them. Because, they haven't done them loads since, so it's not certainly not in a very impactful way.
Not egregiously.
The ones that give you something, I think are fine and quite good. So the ones that go, all right, your creatures have menace, or you can play creatures as if they had flash, are two that I recall being in War of the Spark. All of the ones that are negative for your opponents were miserable and are
Ashiok,
miserable.
Ashiok's terrible.
Ashiok, Teferi.
Yeah.
I mean, even the number of shame scoops that came to failing to read the Wanderer or Tybalt.
Yeah.
Those two that either prevent non-combat damage to creatures or prevent life gain, I think. That it was just a really strange place to have a, for lack of a better term, stacks piece. So even Khan that says, I'm going to turn off your artifacts.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just no, you should have boosted your own artifacts, Khan. Don't be negative, be positive.
True. Yeah, I guess it's similar because I'm looking at this Commodore Guff one. This is a very, very similar to the Ajani ability, right? Of being able to do something for all of your side.
Yeah.
Which feels better.
All right, so we're saying the static ability, maybe not the one. If we move on to the +1. +1. Create a 1/1 red wizard creature token with tap, add a red, spend this money only to cast a Planeswalker spell. So again with the Planeswalkers. Red wizards?
Yeah. Okay, we need to have this. We need to have the episode where we talk about colours on tokens. I'm going to get so angry about it. But yeah, apparently red wizards this time. And then the restriction of not just non-creature, but specifically Planeswalker. Again, maybe they've play tested this enough, but... Tim, how do you feel about
it feels like a lot of words that almost feel like they've come out of a grab bag. Making wizards that can help you make Planeswalkers. Effectively, are we suggesting that Guff is in charge of a wizard school that gradually turns
exactly.
wizards
This is like
Casmina. And honestly, the entirety of this Commodore Guff, I do feel like it may, until late in the process, have just been a different Planeswalker that then they threw the name on.
Right, yeah. That's absolutely how this stuff fits.
But, in principle, you make a creature that helps protect your Planeswalker. That's not the end of the world. In principle, also, this then makes it easier for you to cast more Planeswalkers so that the first ability is not a complete waste of everyone's time. All of these things are not bad, abstract things for a Magic card to do. They just don't feel guffy enough for me.
No. Not enough guff.
It's too down the line. Yeah.
I just don't know what the story relevance is. I'm sure there is some really deep Lord of Orthos cut because there is actually, as we pointed out previously, so much Magic media before the web series and before that kind of stuff. They really pump them out. But sometimes they'll just mention one throwaway line of Guff had a wizard friend or whatever, and then suddenly that's all the abilities relate to that. It might not even be important. All right, and then we move on to the last proper ability, which is -3. You draw X cards, and the Commodore Guff deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of Planeswalkers you control. I mean, nothing about this character screams, over-the-top damage to me.
Nothing about this character screams generic is-it spell. Because that's exactly what this is.
Arguably quite a weak is-it spell as well. Because, So let's imagine we've got 3 scenarios with Commodore Guff, right? He's on his own.
Mm-hmm.
He can make some wizards that help him summon more Planeswalkers who may or may not show up. Assuming that he stays on his own, that minus ability does 1 damage?
1 damage to each opponent, and you draw 1 card.
Yeah, which is clearly just a disaster.
Yeah.
And then
he stays on 2 loyalty afterwards. There's something.
And then you go
4 mana, 1 damage, 1 draw spell. Ugh.
And then you go, okay, fine. I've got 6 Planeswalkers in play. At that point, even with his ultimate, quote unquote, it's still he's probably the weakest Planeswalker. Like, 6 Planeswalkers would be tons of Planeswalkers for anyone to ever have him play in any type of game. Still doesn't really do anything.
No.
Like, the thing that I live in fear of, and it's going to happen. So every one of the precons will typically have the face card that is one of the things that can be your commander. And there'll be something else in the deck that's got the same colour identity and is either a legend or has the text that says it can be your commander. That you can just, without even changing a single card, you can be like, oh, I'm just going to switch it for the other one. And I really hope that it doesn't work out that Guff gets relegated to first substitute.
Yeah, I mean, this is a classic example of that is the Prismari precon from Strixhaven, which I actually played it with Sophie, but it was, what was it, Veyran, Voice of Duality?
Yeah, really, really
you just
strong.
swapped that one around and it was just nutter
better.
butters. Yeah. We'll see. I mean, he is, and then the final text is Commodore Guff can be your commander. I mean, you wouldn't not want to have a commandable? It's not a word. You wouldn't want to have a Commodore Guff that could be your commander, so I guess that makes sense.
I mean, there's plenty of Planeswalkers that can't be your commander, though. Like, and even the ones there's iterations of that can be your commander, like, there's lots of iterations of them even that can't. And, like, arguably, the templating of this card, it probably does make more sense in the 99 than it does as the card you have access to every game, multiple times a game, which is a bit of a shame, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the if we're talking from a lore perspective, it is kind of nice that he sits outside of the library itself.
True. Well, the thing I think they should have done with Guff is he should have been the first Planeswalker that could be your commander, and he's reaching out from the artwork and writing it with his own pen.
He's
like an
literally
uncard.
changed the words, changed the rules.
Yeah, so you've hit the nail on the head. I don't understand why when they did the Headmaster card for Urza and even like Space Bellerin, like in the same kind of vein of why Guff wasn't gone hard into an unset. Put him in an unset and then allow his card to do absolute, like, not even within like the realm of like you have to go on a website and roll, you know, a spin dice, you know, to get a random effect for the Urza Planeswalker. That's kind of what the realm of this card should feel like to me.
Well, so now I despise unsets, Tim. Say for all the listeners, and this will be etched into stone. What's your feeling on unsets?
Hate them.
Yeah,
absolutely hate them.
But the idea of him reaching out and writing,
I mean, that,
I can be your commander.
I think they're very creative. I just hate playing games with them. It's probably closest to the mark.
Backtrack. But that's fine. I can soundbite the first bit forever. That's
yeah,
okay.
I mean, and I'm not lying. But like, I have to really reach to try and make this narrative of the card work. And like, there's a part of me that just likes the idea that Commodore Guff, who's realised that he's a character in this card game, Magic the Gathering, wants to troll everybody, and the best way that he can do that is have his card not be very good.
Yeah,
and that he's just gone, no, I don't need to be at the face of things. I'm gonna just be this role player that sits back and watches the game go on. And no one's really going to try and kill me because why would you bother?
They should have pushed it further then. Make him black green Golgari, make him an enchantment planeswalker, make it weird, make it
give him vigilance.
Yeah, exactly. Make it all the bad
things. It's a keyword that has no relevance.
Boom. I like it.
So what we're saying then about this Guff card as it's presented is, whilst it's a nice card to maybe put in a precon that new players can get invested in, maybe in Commander Masters, maybe, I don't know. When you look at like the Legends cards that came in the first Commander Legends, and indeed a lot of the not the Planeswalker cards, the Legendary cards that came in the precons before precons were everywhere, well, they did these deep cuts. Like they had Tornos was in like a precon, for example, and they did feel slightly more relevant. This maybe is just, as you said earlier, potentially a different Planeswalker that they thought, we can make this the Guff card in Masters.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that part of it potentially as well is that while he clearly does have lore, it's not lore that's at the forefront of anyone's collective memory from recently, because he's not done anything in 20 years. And they may have just gone, we can just make our own narrative around him because, you know what, no one's really going to notice. Yeah. And they're right, let's be honest. It's just that I did.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where, this could very much have easily been this could have been an Urza card, right? Because he was one who actually brought all of the Planeswalkers together for the 9 Titans, and then Guff could have been in that deck, and you could have had the 9 Titans deck instead of making it a Commodore Guff deck.
Yeah, very true.
Because again, like, this is just generic Wizards abilities. This is nothing that feels fourth wall breaking or identifiable as of course, that's a Guff ability.
That's definitely a Guff card.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on to Tim's ideas, we haven't spoken about one aspect of this card, and that is the Matt Stewart artwork.
Oh, right, true. Good point.
Yeah. I'm showing Tim the artwork now so we can get a good look at it. So
I do approve of the artwork.
Yeah, the artwork is good. It's maybe not as whimsical as I would have thought other Guff, like Index, he's like going Like he's got like big frizzy hair like a mad
Yeah, he looks like he's in a
scientist.
Beyonce video in Index.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
great.
yeah,
His
exactly.
hair's blowing all over the shop.
I've got a foil index, and it does actually look pretty cool in foil as well.
He's got a magnificent beard. I mean, his beard is probably the best it is in this iteration. In the
Yeah,
Matt Stewart artwork.
I think it's sufficiently good.
I'm very happy with the artwork. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Like
More gingers in Magic.
in my head, like also like if it had been, and this would have been a deep cut throwback, that essentially the artwork was him sat in exactly the library that the original artwork Nicol Bolas is sat in.
Oh, sure.
Which is also canonically, effectively, a library that contains every book.
Yeah, which they also then repeated with Strixhaven with the Biblioplex.
Yeah.
I like this idea.
But like, if they'd gone, you know what, Commodore Guff usurped Nicol Bolas's library of everything and actually read all of the books, and this is part of what sparked him up. And then you can start actually weaving in a sort of a narrative that fits a bigger timeline than just he was one of the 9 Titans, job done. But, you know, I know, I'm very happy with the artwork. Like, I would stick that on my wall and be happy with it.
Nice. All right. We've waffled. We've guffed enough.
Hey.
Let's get on to the real stuff. Oh, that was almost another rhyme.
It was. It was. Guff and stuff, right?
Guff and stuff do rhyme. I don't know if the... Yeah, right. So, Tim, you... You've had an idea for your own Guff card.
Yes.
Yes.
I was just like, you know what? And I've thought about this over the years a ton. And I do encourage everyone, if there's a character that you think deserves... Like, Planeswalkers are really fun to design because they've got lots of lines of text. Just like figuring out which things feel appropriate. And then it's just a matter of, is it broken, tweaking the numbers, etc., which, you know, we'll leave to wizards to figure out.
Sure.
But yeah, I did design a Commodore Guff. So, Commodore Guff, 2 white, blue, red. So a little bit more expensive to cast.
Okay.
Nice.
And the type line on my one was Planeswalker Titan Guff.
Okay, explain.
So basically, in the same way that you've got Elder Dragon Legends, I feel like this is like a really free bit of design space to, even if it's only used narratively, that like you get to set apart a caliber of card, even if there's no... So like, to the best of my knowledge, there's not anything that references Elder Dragons versus other dragons.
Elder being a type is the closest you've got.
Yeah. But like, there's nothing to say they couldn't then lean back into it later. So like, if they made Commodore Guff Planeswalker Titan Guff, that means that they've then got 8 more Planeswalker Titans they can make in the future over the next 30 years.
And then maybe release a sorcery card later down the line that's like Assemble the Titans.
Right.
And there is quite literally Ezra Assembles the Titan as a card that came out this year.
Shut up, don't embarrass me.
but even if all it does is it means that people see the card and they're like, Titan, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And then proceeds to read up a little bit and go, oh, that's interesting, and get to know the lore a little bit better. I feel like it's literally free. Guff is a very short name.
True.
It's not Asmerado Marty Godizna Gordicar.
Get it in one.
Yeah, almost.
But yeah, so freebie extra bit of lore before we even get to any rules text.
I
or
like
any
it.
significant rules text.
I think they should. Yeah, I mean that, and you could let that run and run. You could do Planeswalker almost anything. Like
the way I was thinking is you could do like Old Walker, but then this facilitates that more nicely. And then you'd have to do Planeswalker Old Walker, which would
Planeswalker
read
God.
which would read.
Yeah, like they're already legendary. How like super legendary, it gets a little bit silly. But I think So Planeswalker Titan Guff.
I like it.
Yeah.
So then we got the first line of rules text, which is Commodore Guff will happily be your commander. Which essentially just, this is a nod to the fact that he's writing the narrative rather than it being...
Right, he's addressing you, the Planeswalker in charge of like the deck of cards that you have.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So like, you immediately get a sense as you read it that this is something a little bit different from the other cards in Magic. But, you know, it's the Floral Spasm exclusion. Are you familiar with this thing?
No.
Oh, you're going to love this. So, Floral Spasm, look it up.
Right.
It's a random weird Magic card that involves making a choice, but for some reason the templating on the card says Floral Spasm chooses.
Oh.
Rather than that you choose.
So the card chooses its own fate.
The card chooses. I can't remember the exact wording, but yeah. It's from Fallen Empires, I think, maybe. But yeah, Floral Spasm is a nonsense card. But yeah, this is the same. Yeah, it's the same sort of idea that it's a card that suddenly makes you think about the fact that maybe the cards have more autonomy than... So yeah, again, we're trying to do as much as we can with as little text as we can because there's a limit to how much space you can fit on a card.
Yeah.
So, Commodore Guff will happily be your commander. If you reveal him from your command zone, after mulligans, you may look at each player's hand.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty powerful.
It is powerful. And I played around a lot with that line of text. Because, like, I think that passives on Planeswalkers are a little bit dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I think that effectively one-off spells, they're a bit like Eminence as well. That like
Leyline meets Eminence, right?
Yes. So you get it every single game, but like, so this is obviously a 3-color Planeswalker, so it's like any 3-color deck gets to be a pretty powerful deck. And if you then just get an ability for free, so in this case you get to peek each other person's hand. Yes, it might take a little bit of time, but like it really plays into the, all right, I know more than you do.
Yeah.
Which is essentially where Commodore Guff comes from. Like, he immediately has a little bit of a peek into the future compared to everyone else. And I actually played about then with tons of other Planeswalkers or Legends in general that have this, if you reveal it from your command zone, after mulligans do a thing. Because, like, I think you can actually get away with doing some quite powerful stuff there as long as you gate it behind a weak enough card.
Right, yeah.
So like, a strong effect to start the game, and then there's not necessarily a big payoff for the card after.
An example card might be a mono-red commander. So immediately, if you put it on a mono-coloured card, I think they're really safe. Or comparatively safe, assuming you trust designers.
Sure.
So yeah, imagine we had a red legend that was a 3/2 for 3.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe give it first strike. But if you reveal it from your command zone as your commander, at the start of the game, each player takes 10 damage.
Wow.
So, like, it really leans in heavily into what the colour pie is for that colour. But then you go, look, it's a one-off thing. Suddenly, aggro can be real.
Sure.
Because, you know, you're not completely stuck having to deal 120 damage. You've got to deal 90, which is still a lot of damage.
Yeah, sure.
But, like, for the decks that are going, I'll be able to get my shields up, you can't aggro me down. It's like, you start at 30 now.
Yeah.
I have got one for all 5 colours, but I don't want to turn this into Tim's big design workshop. But yeah, so for Guff, you get a peek on everyone.
Cool.
You get to look at their hand at the start. Once you've done that peek, carries on as normal.
I suppose it's early enough in the game as well that you're not seeing their end game.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
And also, because it's worded as if you reveal him from your command zone after mulligans, this is a powerful ability that can't ruin any other formats. So, like, there's been bits and pieces of issues of commander cards that have ended up being good in Legacy and Vintage. Can't be the thing for this.
Cool.
And should it also say that you should see the bottom card of everyone's library because he knows how the story ends?
We've got economy of words. Economy of words.
None of you can hear the look that Andy's giving me, but Andy's giving me a look.
We can talk about our Guff cards in another episode.
Every other episode.
They've had 122 episodes of us talking about this.
It's the Guff cast.
Exactly.
There's a story I'll tell you later, but not for the podcast. So, +1. He's got some plus abilities. +1, discard a card at random, draw 2 cards. Relatively harmless. This is him searching for information.
Right.
Reading all of his books. He's got little bits of random stuff across the various cards he's shown on Bond thus far. I like to believe that he just quite likes it.
Yeah.
That he's just like, he prefers things to feel a little bit chaotic, given that he knows how things end.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Then we have -3, and this one is powerful. Search your deck for a card, then discard a card at random. So this is exactly Gamble.
Right.
Yeah, but Liliana for the same cost had exactly...
-2 is search and put it on top.
Is Vampiric Tutor, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I always like Gamble as a
rivals.
tutor, because tutors can be egregious.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get the ultimate downside, which is you might have to burn the card that you searched for, then it becomes a lot more fun.
And obviously the feel bad isn't so bad, and colours that can, flash things back, and in white gets resurrection.
I mean, like, red already has
instantly
access to actual Gamble.
Yeah.
And
I think that's fair. Well, what does he start at? Okay, fine.
We'll get there. -9, so this is a proper ultimate now. Gain an emblem that reads, whenever you would draw a card, instead search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle.
Can't ever mill.
Can't get forced to draw lots.
No.
But essentially, this is Archmage's Ascension having ascended from Zendikar, I think it was.
Yeah, the original. Yeah, the quest.
So it's very powerful.
Yeah.
At that point, you have access to all of the knowledge in the world. So some key bits and pieces with all three of these abilities. Commodore Guff is not a planeswalker who can protect himself with anything other than knowledge.
I like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So he knows what cards are in your hand at the start of the game. He can search for cards to help protect him, but fundamentally, he cannot just erect a wall of beasts or whatever it might be, so that you have to play him at the right time. But you've got a little bit of information to help you do that, and once he's on the battlefield, you can filter your draws and do all sorts of good things to do good stuff. And then starting loyalty 5. The reason I went with this is, firstly, it means that if you want to gamble twice, you have to use the +1.
Yeah.
And then, like, yes, in principle, if you put him in a deck where he's not the commander, you can do the doubling season thing of insta-ultimating him. But you know what? If you're gonna go down that path, I want you to just... You've already got so many tools.
You're already playing 4 colours. Yeah.
Well, like, those decks already exist, and there's much more powerful ultimates that you can instantly get anyway.
Yeah.
But 5 is the same as Liliana, 5 mana planeswalker starting with 5 loyalty, that can search things out in a completely different set of colours, obviously.
I suppose the 5 mana, if you were to -3 him as soon as you put him down, no one's going to scream sort of cheat at having a 5 mana gamble that could then just get taken off the table if someone hits
exactly.
it.
It's only 2 loyalty at that point.
Yeah,
It's not too difficult to attack into.
Yeah, I mean, I think that fits the vibe of Guff in general. I mean, Guff is ostensibly one of the most powerful beings that's ever been in Magic, maybe the most, because they're self-aware.
Close to Aminatu levels, I think.
Yeah. Aminatu is like, but Aminatu is only that powerful in world. Like, Guff is
True,
that powerful
I guess,
out of world as well. But no one ever goes, like, he hasn't tried to take over the multiverse like Urza style, do you know what I mean?
No, like, he wouldn't even try and take over a conversation.
No, exactly.
But he did fundamentally change the canon of the universe, which is quite interesting.
Wow! Yeah,
So, like,
true.
there's been various abilities over the years that I've looked at and gone, that feels a bit Commodore Guffish. So, Khan's ability to restart the game
Yeah.
feels like a Commodore Guff style ability. Wish effects also feel Commodore Guffish, though obviously they don't work in Commander, which is a bit of an issue for including them in a Commander card. Like, essentially, all sorts of things that let you really feel like you're changing the rules of the game feel quite Commodore Guffish. And there's been, like, weirdly, some of the inspiration for some of the cool things on this guy are from non-Magic card games, I think. Because, like, Magic's made a lot of cards that do a lot of things.
Sure.
But they've kind of got their groove now.
Yeah.
And they'll work the way they work. So I used to play, years and years and years ago, a card game called WWE Raw Deal.
Actually, cool.
Which was actually, it was a million different ways broken, but somehow kind of just held together.
WWE is in the World Wrestling
guys,
Entertainment.
yeah.
Right. Not like the wildlife WWF.
No,
I'm thinking
yeah.
of WWF,
Yeah.
am I?
Yeah,
okay, cool.
they had to change the name because of that.
Yeah.
But, like, so that game, it was designed by a guy called Baron Vangatov, real name. And
That's ridiculous.
he was just this, like, savant that somehow made this really, like, successful, well put together mess.
Yeah.
It was a real beautiful mind type situation that, like, it was very chaotically powerful, but somehow or other, like, there were a few key things that kind of held it together. But in that game, essentially, you would be a wrestler. So, like, you know, Andy, you might be The Rock.
Sure.
And, you know, Nathan, you might be, like, Funaki.
No, that'd be Kane. Oh no, Rey Mysterio. Yeah,
Oh,
so
right,
Scotty
you'd be Rey
too.
Mysterio.
That'd be Scotty too high.
In many respects, it's a bit like Commander, because you had your face card that was who you were.
Yeah.
And then you had your deck that featured cards that you were allowed to play because of who you were. But it meant that you had, like, a static ability or something at the start of the game that your guy did. And there was one character called Bobby the Brain, who was some random, like, manager, I think, from, like, the early days of wrestling. But his ability was, at the start of the game, before anyone draws their opening hands, you can look through your opponent's deck. Just, like, from top to bottom, look through the entire deck. and then he had a few search effects going on. I'm like, that's a really interesting, cool ability.
Yeah.
That's, in this case, gate-kept behind being on this one card that then meant you couldn't play all these other cards. Are there similar abilities that you could have? And like, I do think, truly, that having a few commander-locked pre-game abilities is a thing that's not been done yet that could be done that wouldn't be the end of the world.
Yeah, pre-game effect.
What were the other ones? The green legend that I had for my set of 5 monocoloured looks. I think monocoloured is way safer because like, how good can a monocoloured legend ever be? Because you get gate kept so that you can only run those colours.
Sure.
And so I think my white one was, if you reveal this to be commander, you get to go first.
All right.
I mean, that's not even that much of an advantage, really. I mean, it is, but
Well, it's keeping it at parity, right?
It depends on the deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
But weirdly, of all the ones that I looked at, that was the ones like, oh, that might be really good in CDH. Like, if you're the white deck that knows it's going first,
yeah, get ahead with your stack pieces.
get a stacked
or whatever.
piece and play early.
Yeah.
But then your actual general is like a 2/2 for 1 or something.
Sure.
The green one was at the start of the game, you get to put, like, before anyone takes their first turn, you can put a land from your hand into play.
Yeah, makes sense.
What were the blue and
That would be so obnoxious.
Would it
I
though?
think.
I mean, Gemstone
would.
Caverns already exists.
Ugh.
Like, you can already do that.
Ugh.
But like, now imagine that your commander in your commander game is a 2-mana 2/2 elf that taps for 1.
I guess you.
Like, that's what you've sacrificed.
You mean
to put a land
you're still
into play.
playing you're still playing it on turn 1.
You are, yes. Like, you're getting to accelerate, guaranteed. But like, and admittedly, yes, we did ban Rothlos.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think that there's room for, like, obviously it depends on how much you trust the people that are designing it to not go too far. But like, I think there's room for it, and I think it'd be interesting.
Cool. All right. I mean, that is infinitely more guffy. I think going back to
Changing the fundamental way that the game works.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think so too.
I mean, that's kind of the idea, right? Again, I feel like that idea of they missed an opportunity. I mean, again, as a newer player, if you were to read this card, there is nothing about it that screams fourth wall breaking, Ubermensch. You know, like I don't read this and go, oh, holy shit, Commodore Guff's pretty strong. Yeah. I don't even read it and go, oh, holy shit, Commodore Guff's like a bit funky.
But do you read it? Do you read it and think that's a Commodore Guff card?
And that's the thing. I mean, Tim's,
yeah,
the one that we've got.
Not necessarily, no. I mean, I don't want to be too harsh on the one that they've designed, because maybe it's not the guffiest card, but it's definitely a card with a purpose, right?
I think they sometimes reach too far. Like, you're reaching in terms of lore for something that people might not necessarily like know about, and I think reception for the book, like a lot of people, like I only read one review of it recently, and they very much put Guff as like a footnote because they hated the fourth wall breaking. So to them, that was a bit they skipped. So they didn't really put a lot of didn't shine a lot of lights on it or give it a lot of praise. So even then, like the abilities you're doing might be so unknown or even like disliked that they might not have been able to lead into it, because they definitely have like the capacity to know like how to make a tongue-in-cheek planeswalker, because we've seen the as a headmaster planeswalker. Yeah,
but again, I don't know. I think they're moving in a very different direction with unsets, like going back to the unset thing.
Yeah.
They want them to be like heavily themed as opposed to being just sort of generically silly.
Well, exchange of words within the latest one, right, where you can change, as an enchant, where you can change the text boxes of 2 different permanents.
Yeah.
Which is very clever. Again, that feels very Guffy. That idea of rewriting the script, as it were.
Yeah, but I mean, as we've established, unsets are terrible and should never be printed, so...
So, like, my true, honest feelings on unsets are that, like, I think that there's some very funny people that work at WOTC that are good at writing a joke. And I think that some of the cards that are made for unsets are quite good jokes.
Yes.
I just think that, like, there are very few jokes that stand up to being heard multiple times.
Ooh, this sounds very familiar, doesn't it? This argument.
Yeah, no, when you're trying to be funny, you're not funny anymore. I get it. Like, it was no longer a parody or a pastiche. It was.
Yeah, I'm not going to yoke you on too much. You enjoy them. That's fine.
I mean, like. In a way, I would rather go, I'll do a draft that's got 1 unbooster in a chaos draft. And that's probably the perfect amount of unset to me. Where you go, each deck has between 0 and 3 uncards. So arguably, this is what we're talking about is exactly Mystery Booster Draft, where every pack's got 1 somewhere between and not card. And you go, that amount of them is quite entertaining and different and weird. But yeah, like... if every single card in someone's deck is a variation on some joke or other, not for me.
Yeah.
But, if other people enjoy it, much like the Lord of the Rings set, not really for me, but if other people enjoy it, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, not everyone's funny, so why should we make a set of jokes?
Why ever try and be funny?
Yeah, exactly.
Why ever try?
Why ever try?
I can't wait for the angry set,
Or just bitter, the spiteful set.
Yeah. Like the really
Oh man,
salt ridden.
WOTC hit me up?
Let's do it. Give it to me. Give me cumulative upkeeps. Bring back all those mechanics from Kamigawa. Let's do it. Have a really bad
Bands
time.
with other legends.
Oh, I love it. Fantastic. Bands with other creatures with Island Walk.
I once won in one of, again, talking about your shop, because you're here, we might as well talk about it. In one of when we used to do the raffle or the Wheel of Fortune,
Yes.
I won the top prize, which was a mystery prize, and it was the land that has you banned with all other green permanents. Was it Home Farmstead? Home...
Bands with other green legends.
Is that it? It's the land.
So
it doesn't tap for any
is-
mana.
Oh, what's it called?
It's an old border card. I can't even remember. It's been sat in the back of
There's
my...
one for each colour.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the green one.
Hammerheim. No, Hammerheim's the red one.
Yeah. Nathan's looking it up now.
Bands with into Scryfall, we'll see.
Yeah, there's only like 6 bands with other cards, so...
I'm going to have to sneeze as well. Oh, it's all happening.
It's all happening at once.
It's
Oh, I might edit it out. I might not. We literally had a conversation beforehand. It was like, I've actually stopped editing these so harsh. You're doing very well, Tim, by the way. You didn't have a voice yesterday.
Literally not at all. Today I've coughed twice, so you're welcome to edit that out.
That one.
Adventurers Guildhouse.
Adventures Guildhouse.
What artwork do you want? A literal house.
Yeah, all green legends gain bands with other legends. So that was the best prize ever won.
It is actually quite good.
Yeah.
If you understand how it works.
Well, yeah, that's it. I don't.
So arguably it's not very good.
I barely understand how Magic works, and I've been playing it for about 10 years. So I don't think it's quite for me. But there we go. Well, thank you so much for talking about the Guff card. We've still got a bit of time. I really like that design, by the way. I think it's good. Have you shown that design to anyone else?
I've spoken with people a little bit about it. Like, it's one of those ones where, like, so WOTC has a very weird policy when it comes... Well, maybe not weird. They have a policy. It makes sense. So WOTC's policy when it comes to card design, anyone that's out there that's like, oh, I've got some great ideas that I want to bother Gavin and Mark and whoever with.
Right, yeah.
Like, their policy is they cannot listen to people talking about card designs. So, like, weirdly, if you ever need to get rid of Gavin or Mark Rosewater or anyone else in a hurry, just be like, I've got a great idea for a card design, and start talking. And essentially they have to put their fingers in their ears and go la 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 and run away. Because if it, like, let's imagine that I had trotted into Renton in Seattle and gone, here's my brilliant design for Commodore Guff, take a look, and shown it to the whole team there. If they've all seen it, that means that then, in principle, if they made a card that was broadly similar, they might have an annoying, like, intellectual property conversation where they have to go, where I'm like, but I designed that card, and they're like, oh, but, you know, we designed it really, though.
And even because you're not an unknown entity to them, because you've literally
I am mates with various of these people, and I have made them run away by doing exactly this. This is not, pie in the sky.
Power.
But, I mean, like, it's very rare that you see card designs from outside the building that turn into cards. Basically, the only times it's happened is on, like, so they used to have the Invitational. I don't know if you guys are familiar.
Well, Fairy Mastermind was the latest one, right?
Well, no. So that was for Fairy Mastermind was Yuta Takahashi won the World Championships, and his face is on Fairy Mastermind.
He didn't have anything to do with.
I think that they probably had a meeting, but he didn't really design it. But the Invitational, the prize for winning the Invitational was you get to design a Magic card.
Is this Snapcaster Mage? Is this one of them?
So Snapcaster Mage is one of them. Solemn Simulacrum, Dark Confidant, yeah, like a whole bunch of them. Some of them very, very good. Some of them maybe not so much. And at the start of the tournament, they would publicise in the coverage everyone's submitted design that was playing. So there'd be 16 players in Invitational, 16 card designs. And a number of cards have come out that were the design, like almost verbatim, the designs of other players in the tournament. So, like, let's think about this. Chalice of the Void is a card that was designed by Gary Wise one year for the Invitational. He didn't win the Invitational, so his card didn't get made with his face on it. But they looked at the design and were like, that's pretty good, isn't it? And so they made it. The Gemstone Caverns, which we mentioned earlier on, that was Tsuyoshi Fujita, and his was called Unlucky Man's Paradise.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I like that.
And yeah, the whole idea was how can you make it so if you're going second, you don't feel quite so bad about it. You get to have a land in play at the start of the game. I believe that Paolo Vitor da Rosa, he broadly designed Oracle of Muldair.
Wow, really?
As like, yeah, that was his. It wasn't exactly word for word. The other two were almost exactly word for word. His one was very, very similar. But yeah, you don't see lots of someone making public a design and then that turning into a card because WOTC has to be careful about IP. But story time, I do have a story about the design of Snapcaster Mage that was an invitational winners card because I reckon I have 10% responsibility for that card existing.
Well, that is a big ass claim.
So, let me run you through this. So,
It's story time.
The Invitational in Essen, Germany. I was the guy on coverage for this event.
I've just dropped everything at the start of the story. Sorry, grab me another beer. I'm getting settled in if Tim's going to be telling the story. Do you want another drink?
Yeah, let's do it. Crack them open. Story time.
This podcast is now going to be 2 hours long.
Yep.
Good.
I mean, if
we're
you want a
halfway through it
sub-segment for future one, we can just do lots of story time with Tim's that you can just patch in at the end of all sorts.
There's actually been quite a few of these invitational cards.
Yeah.
14 of them.
Yeah. Some of them incredibly iconically powerful.
Yeah, some of them are Shadowbane Infiltrator and some of them are Rootwater Thief.
Rootwater Thief was all right.
Right.
The weird bit on Rootwater Thief being that Mike Long that designed it, he's the guy in the boat, not the big merfolk guy.
Exactly.
Most of them, it's literally got a physical depiction of the person that won on the card. So, Snapcaster Mage, printed in Innistrad, designed by Tiago Chan. The original card that he submitted was a card called Denying Channel, which was a land that had the channel ability. So you could pay 2 colourless blue, discard it, counter target spell.
Pretty strong.
Pretty strong. By today's standards, probably printable.
Yeah.
By the standards of the day, not printable. So ultimately, it got changed around. It ended up being Snapcaster Mage, which played into the mechanics of Innistrad. That's where Flashback came from.
Yeah, 2011. So yeah, it was about 10 years ago.
So, I was doing coverage of that Invitational. And the Invitational was a blast. 16 players in Germany playing this event where it was like 3 rounds a day of all sorts of weird and wonderful formats. And at the end of it, someone gets to sign a card. Essentially, everyone's on a big jolly. We had a lovely time. There was all sorts of, that's the event where I got to learn that Kenji Samura is an unbelievable bowler. All sorts of things. But one of the formats was Vintage. Vintage, obviously, you get to play with any cards across the entire history of Magic. Very, very powerful format. And Tiago Chat, just because pro players are pro players doesn't mean to say that they just have all the cards. That would be... Some of them do, to some extent, but that's their choice. That costs a lot of money. Especially for Vintage being a format that there's no real reason for anyone to play it if they don't want to. Certainly not a big tournament format.
Not everyone can afford a Tabernacle.
So it's the day before the Vintage bit gets played, and we're hanging out at the bar, and I'm like, oh, Tiago, what Vintage deck are you going to play? And at the time, I think the best deck was probably a Flash Hulk deck, but there was also Staxy things and control things, all sorts of very specific.
Workshop's legal in Vintage, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Most things are.
I play Commander. Oh god, I'm such a fake Magic player.
And Tiago turns around and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've got this red-blue goblins deck." And I'm like, "Interesting. Tell me more." And he's like, "Oh yeah, well I've got access to an ancestral recall, and some dual lands. So I'm basically playing an aggro goblins list that has the ability to draw 3. It might have had a Time Walk as well. Obviously, these are very good cards.
Yeah.
But also, obviously, or maybe not obviously, this is not a Vintage deck.
It's a bit of a rogue list.
Yeah, by typical sort of metrics. And I don't particularly have lots of cards, but I know lots of people.
Yeah.
And basically, I'm like, Tiago, is this really the deck that you want to play? Like, this is the Invitational. Who knows when you're next going to get a chance to do this? Like, is this the deck you really want to play? And he's like, well, I mean, not really. But, you know, who can snap their fingers and get the 75 vintage cards that they want at a moment's notice?
Yeah,
And I'm just like...
Willoughby.
and basically, I'm just like, a buddy of mine who was in town for that event just to hang out and see what was going on, and he's a huge vintage player, loves vintage, and I'm like, give me a list of 75 cards. First round's at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. I think it'll be fine. And so I got him the 75 that he wanted, and then he proceeded to win the invitation.
Nice.
With the finals being vintage. I feel a little bit guilty because another good friend of mine was in the finals against him and got beaten up by the deck that I...
Who knows whatever card they were going to design.
But, I mean, I say 10%,
Sure.
but realistically, there's a 0% chance, or maybe not 0, there's like a 3% chance that Tiago Chan wins that Invitational with his red-blue Goblins deck. So, if you like Snapcaster Mage, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And if you don't like Snapcaster Mage, you know, I'm sorry.
Sorry, blame Tiago Chan. Well, that's a wild story. We've known each other for years. I don't think I've ever heard you say that. That's not a brag you bring out very often.
No, I keep most of these things pretty close to my chest. But I felt like it'd be a fun one to throw in for my friends that are listening.
Oh,
you.
that's such a
So for
backhanded
listening,
compliment.
for the friends listening.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
He's good. He's been great.
It's okay. It's good. We don't have to release this episode. It's fine.
Burns me up inside. All right. Thank you for that. Last little bits. Lots of Magic sets coming up because the perpetual
Because
trade.
we live in 2023.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings, you've already said it's fine for other people, it's not for you, that's fine. What do we reckon about Wilds of Eldraine? That's going to be the next one, kind of coming around the corner.
Yeah, I'm up for it. Like,
how did you like? I remember the pre-releases for the last Eldraine. It was actually when you were moving your shops.
yes.
We had it in a local cafe
Yes.
on a bit of flooring that no longer exists because it collapsed.
Yeah, we dodged a bullet there, just about. I liked Eldraine. I felt like it had a relatively straightforward direction it was going in, and it went there. And I don't mind going back. I feel like there's room to do fun things or tell more stories in that space. So yeah, I'm cool with that.
Cool. Excellent. So, I mean, of the sets that we've had recently, because they've taken some wild swings, it's only because this has been the debate of this podcast for the past maybe 2 years. If we go back to like Kamigawa, Neon Dynasty, New Capenna, where we've got things like limousines and mechs and all that kind of stuff going on in
Neon
Magic.
Genesis.
Neon Genesis, like, yeah, Godfather.
Yeah.
Like, you've been playing Magic for a long time.
Almost all of time.
And you've done the full circle of, well, it started as a game that was high fantasy, went into sci-fi fantasy quite quickly with like the Urza's Saga, and now it's kind of swung all back around. Like, what do you reckon to the flavorful design of Magic, like, broadly speaking?
I mean, I think that like one of the strengths of Magic is that it can reinvent itself, and it has done a bunch. So like, I didn't mind, for example, Neon Kamigawa. I was like, you know what? Yeah, it kind of makes sense that sooner or later that will happen. I think that my only worry for the narrative, and this includes Universes Beyond, this includes New Planes, this includes New Planeswalkers or Secret Layers, any of that sort of thing, is that what I don't want to happen is to hit a point where it feels a bit silly. And like, so sort of, to me, like one of the strengths of Rule Zero, the bar that we're all banging on about, my bar.
He says it so flippantly. It's not like it's a successful business, which we all
The thing that
patron.
caused me headaches daily.
I'm not even going to talk you through my working day today. But no, like, one of the things that we like about it is a place where everyone can feel comfortable in the skin they're in and doing the things that they like to do, whether that is showing up to go and watch the West Ham game, showing up to play Magic, D&D, Pokemon, going to see the flamenco dancing, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
People can have a nice time and feel like they're in their place, right? And like, I think that for a lot of us nerds, like, feeling proud of the thing that you like is really important.
Yeah.
And I think that like, there's times that you go, the dragons and the knights and the elves and the lightning bolts might feel a little uncool, but we've made our peace with it and we know where we're at with it.
Yeah.
And it's got its own coolness to it.
Yeah.
And like, I have on many occasions found myself playing Magic in surprising places, mainly pubs, but, surprising pubs, let's say. Have I played Magic on a boat going down the Seine in Paris? Yes, I have. Have I played in a ski lift? Yes, I have. But when someone comes up and asks me what I'm doing, I can quite happily go, this is what I'm doing, this is how it works. There's a lovely turn of phrase that got coined, I believe it was by Dave Williams, who has gone on to be successful in poker. He came second on MasterChef in the USA. He's a cool guy, very charismatic guy, and he describes Magic's narrative as being like, look, in chess there's kings and queens and knights and bishops and all these things, and that's important for some people and it helps bring together the narrative and help them enjoy what they're doing. But for other people, these are all mechanical pieces that are part of a complicated and vibrant and engaging game. And like Magic the Gathering has knights and kings and queens and wizards, and for some people that is just window dressing. But the bit that I worry about in terms of things getting silly is the moment that someone comes across, sees us all out in a bar playing a game that we're having a lovely time, and they're like, oh, what's going on? It's like, oh, we're playing this game, Magic the Gathering. It's like, oh, well, what are the details? Like, well, it's Optimus Prime versus Gandalf versus Chun-Li from Street Fighter and two of the kids from Stranger Things.
And the Doctor. Which one? The fifth one?
One of them.
And like,
one, yeah.
I don't think we're there yet, and hopefully we don't get to the point where I have to feel silly. But like, that's my one very slight, like, minimal concern, let's call it. Because like, I do think that there's so much lovely lore within Magic, whether it's referential to other things or not, that it becomes a shame if the amount of overlaid lore from other things creates this cocktail that just loses all distinctness of its flavours because it's just a bit of a mess.
Yeah. I think that's a very valid concern. Like, I know Nathan and I were quite harsh in earlier episodes of this podcast against Universes Beyond when we were looking at things like The Walking Dead, which was the most bizarre swing for a first Universes Beyond.
Fortnite, for example.
Even stepping back from what they've done since, the fact that Walking Dead was the first dip into that was fucking wild.
I wonder how much money got put into their hands to make that happen.
Yeah, but like, I think we've softened on it over time, broadly speaking. But there's if anyone listens to the Commander Sphere podcast, I know we plug them a lot, and like we're friendly with them as well out on social medias. Dan Sheehan very much is the kind of guy where the host of that podcast where he'll say, I absolutely love the idea that they've got different like things going on and people like it fine, but I also think it's valid to say I like Magic being Magic. And like you said, he does not even he's not against the Universes Beyond cards being in the game, and like I don't think many people are now to an aggressive degree, or at least not in our sort of circles. But yeah, there's a tipping point, right?
Yeah.
You hope they don't reach it. I mean, I love the fact. So I've got a Wernog and Hargild partners deck, which is the Will and Dunstan reskins from the Stranger Things, and they gave them a Magic like relook, right? You had Godzilla, and that was a skin for Zilortha in the Ikoria cards, where they've only now just done a Zilortha cards. They've kind of gone around the houses on that one, but like, if they keep doing that, then hopefully it will be fine.
Well, I mean, one of the weird bits for me on that front, so like, we were talking at work about like, is there an IP or a world or a setting that like you would like to see become a universe beyond? And my immediate answer is, to be honest, not really. For whatever reason, I can't think of an IP that feels remotely realistic. And I was thinking about it a little bit more, and I was like, how would I feel about a set that was, and this might be a secret lair, it might be a series of commander decks, it might be a full set, that was Shakespeare based.
I was thinking this because there's a bunch of Shakespeare text already referenced in Magic anyway.
Is. On some of the older cards in the flavour text, you've got a bunch of, Boomerang with its Call Back Tomorrow. There's various of them, like weirdly not even necessarily referencing the big plays. And like there is a lot of Magic within the Shakespeare plays. Like you could have a commander set that was a Macbeth deck, the Tempest, Midsummer Night's Dream, and Romeo and Juliet. There's 4 different decks. And that would be quite cool. And I was thinking about it a little bit more, and I was like, if you went 5 years ago, you would just have someone that would have quietly built a Romeo and Juliet deck, using all of the existing cards to convey that same story. And it might not be that, you realise on turn 0 when you look at the commanders that it's like, oh, that's what's going on here. but you gradually figure it out. And like, so going back to Eldraine, like one of the nice things about Eldraine was where you suddenly started to piece together, oh, that's this story.
Yeah.
Oh, this one is Goldilocks. This one is
All the little references. Yeah.
And like, that's a fun, like, essentially it's, you know, you're on a big Easter egg hunt.
Yeah.
And like, I could sit down today and build a Romeo and Juliet deck. And in some respects, I might find it more satisfying doing that with cards that don't say Romeo, Gallant Prince, you know,
Juliet, Fair Maiden.
Well, I think so. Fellow CAG member and friend of the podcast, Kristen Gregory, when she came on to talk about the guilds, because we did a guilds episode with her, and we were like, oh, so on the horizon, I think at that point we sort of knew they were doing Lord of the Rings. They just announced it, and this was like almost 2 years ago now. But she had been cultivating this Lord of the Rings deck because she's a huge Tolkien fan, and I think she was using Kenrith,
replicating ring to be able to make.
Yeah. And she was super proud of all the different things, and at the time she was like, well, obviously it's just going to blow my deck out of the water, and I'll build one because I love Lord of the Rings, but my artistic endeavour is maybe a little bit nullified. And I mean, you know,
who do you choose for your Doctor Who deck when you've already got a Doctor Who to put into it?
Yeah, so I'd be interested to see what she feels about this exact subject. But yeah, I think your sentiment is echoed by a lot of people.
Because I think we did a build challenge, right? And we did different pieces of it, and I did
Princess Mononoke,
and that's very much like you could definitely have a Ghibli like Universes Beyond set for Magic. I think quite easily. I think it would sell quite well, and if you do the recognisable characters, quite easy. Would I want there to be a card that's specifically built to be Princess Mononoke, or am I happy with Naeth and then building around that? I mean, again, it's one of those. Is it taking away from my fun to have something ready made for me? And I think there's a big difference between like having a pre-con compared to having like just the card. But again, you are taking away the artistic license when you go. You could build it yourself, but there's already a more specific option here, and then you fall into the trap of what if that specific option doesn't fulfill the role? Like you could have any guy and any gal or whatever combination being a Romeo and Juliet based on what you want the deck to do. Whereas if they make a Romeo and Juliet and they say this is what Romeo does and this is what Juliet does, you've kind of lost your freedom of what the deck does.
And if you don't like what Romeo and Juliet the cards do,
then you're stuck.
You can't then pick another pair and then people go, "This is my Romeo and Juliet deck," and they go, "Well, no, why are you using the Romeo and Juliet cards?"
Exactly, yeah. So is I know when we've had something before, more is always more. Sometimes more can be too. I don't know. Is there such thing as too much or too specific?
No, oh God,
I know,
we've built a whole brand on saying more is more.
Yeah, I know.
Which we already stole from the Professor on Solarian Community.
True.
College. Yeah. So we can't backtrack on that.
No, we can say it was
Double Jeopardy.
We can say it was his idea and not believe in it anymore. Throw him under the bus. It was fine for this. It was fine this long, old man. But now you're wrong. Shakespeare stick cloud. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Tim, thank you so much for coming on.
I feel guilty it's taken this long, but I don't feel sad with what we've ended up with.
No, absolutely. No. Well, I mean, we've banged on and sort of sandbagged it enough. But Tim, what are you up to and where can people find you?
I mean, the easiest way that someone can find me in person is to walk into Rule Zero in East London, because chances are at any given moment there's a medium to good chance I'm there.
Yeah.
We're a lovely bar which also has lots of games, which also has the theatre and all that lovely stuff. rulezero.co.uk. You can see what we're all about.
We'll stick the links in the description.
Come and say hi.
We get so many content creator friends or people visiting. Like a lot of our listeners are US based actually, and like because that's just the way that Magic content goes. Is that even if you're a European creator or UK creator, you have a lot of like clout in the US, and like so many US listeners have been like messaged directly to the Twitter, being like, "I'm in London. Where's this bar that you keep talking about?" And like I think also like some of our like Adam the Gathering, who's obviously like a UK creator, he came down to Rule Zero.
Well, Gavin was down the other day. Gavin Verhey.
Yeah.
Like. In essence, like what I quite like, and it's going to be a weird thing how it pans out as people travel more and whatnot, is that somehow, either by hook or by crook, we have got a little bit of a destination where it's just like, if people make it to London and like Magic, I think we're one of the places that's worth checking out.
Like, for sure.
It's going to be very strange the first time that Post Malone does a show in London.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he probably should come by and say hello.
Yeah.
But we shall see about that.
For sure. Is your document, your sort of living document on the ban list still live on socials? You did post that once upon a time.
It is live. I can repost it on my Twitter, which is where I typically share it. I wrote that before I was a part of the Commander Advisory Group. Arguably, it's one of the reasons I'm now part of the Commander Advisory Group. It's basically a big, long, very long
I read it from cover to cover.
Document basically covering why every card that's on the Commander ban list is banned. And I stand by it. Per my last reading, I think it's unlikely that I'd change a lot of it. I am writing a slightly more succinct version to go on the Commander website for the rules committee / CAG.
And then once you've done that, they're done with you and you're kicked out.
Yeah, no,
No,
at that
it
point
was-
people
well-
won't be able to argue anymore. They'll be like, oh yeah, no,
Oh, it's
fair enough.
definitive.
Yeah.
But it is a weirdly ephemeral document, the band list. Like it doesn't necessarily follow as straightforward a structure as some of the band lists for other bits of Magic. So it's worth having a bit of insight on it. And now I have the slightly inside line of being able to just be like, so Sheldon, why is this banned? and by and large, it's what I've already said, but it's helpful to get some perspective on that that's not just mine. In terms of other bits and pieces, yeah, my Twitter, I'm relatively active. When people message me, will typically get back to them. That's at Tim's Wheelbarrow. There's not a great story for why it's that. It's just I've been on the internet for a long time. Yeah, I am very, very slowly. This started off as a lockdown project and then got put on pause a little bit when I had actual real gainful work to do. Writing a book about Commander.
Yes.
Which is getting there. You know, like there's one of those things that like, you know, you always try to polish things and polish and polish and polish and it might never be done.
The problem is the format, not just the game, but the format is moving so quickly.
Well, conveniently, I feel like I made some smart choices in terms of how it structured the book, because it's not really a book that's designed to go, here is what the cutting edge is and how to achieve it.
It's not the right here, right now. It's more
it's
a generalised.
It's giving people a whole bunch of tools to help them enjoy playing Commander more.
Nice, yeah.
So some of that is, you know, for if you're not familiar with building decks, some general principles on which to build decks, and some of it is, you know, how to use search engines well, how to use how to build a collection well, such that it will scratch the right itch for you. But there's a lot of it, honestly, that's just about figuring out what constitutes a fun game for you and working out what the tools are to make that true. So, like, it's really, really easy to build a really powerful deck that will just murder everybody. But at some point, I think we all hit that point where we go, oh, wait a second, winning isn't good enough anymore.
Yeah.
I need to build a deck where I am having a rewarding time, and hopefully everyone else at the table's having a rewarding time.
Yeah, that's definitely the sort of 3-month induction period into playing Commander. You see so many new players that will happily stomp the table, and everyone goes, "Well done, new player, you did it." And then 3 months later, they'll go, "Yeah, so I took apart my Atraxa deck, and now I've built this like Kiku Knight's Flower deck." And you're like, "Yeah, now let's go."
Stop plugging your next deck.
I am actually building a Kiku Knight's Flower deck. Is the title of your book going to be "Drink Some Water, Go Outside and Touch Grass" by any chance? That's good advice.
Still working on the title, but it's on the list.
It's chill the fuck out. It's a card game. Well, you are also going to be. I hope we can cut this if you don't want people to know your whereabouts.
No.
Oh, good. All right. Okay. We'll post your
Stat
address.
zero almost all the
close.
time. Apart from
Command Fest Barcelona.
I will be in Barcelona for that weekend. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, but some of it will definitely be playing a whole bunch of Commander.
Yeah, right. You're there to play Magic. Right?
No, like what I'm like historically.
Yes.
There is a Pro Tour going on. Historically, I would have been involved in coverage of the Pro Tour.
Yes.
To the best of my knowledge, I'm not involved with coverage of the Pro Tour.
All right. Well, when they throw a jacket on you and hand
you
you a
show up and
microphone,
like, oh, you're finally here. We've been waiting.
But no, I will be hanging out in the command zone to some extent. I will be at some parties.
I mean, you're a member of the CAG now, mate. You gotta show up.
Live it large.
You got to take that people screaming at you about like why Edgar Markov's not banned completely.
The one that I normally get more than most is the why is Coalition Victory banned.
That's always the one.
Well, post up your thesis and people...
I mean, it's literally there's over 1,000 words just on why Coalition Victory's banned. So.
Well, we are not going to Command Fest Barcelona. You're not even, Nathan, going to Command Fest London.
No. It's the same weekend as Glastonbury.
And you made your priorities more than known. You're going to Glastonbury instead of coming with me.
No, I'm not going to Glastonbury. My boss is going to Glastonbury.
Oh,
Someone has
you're
to run
working.
the venue.
Oh,
Yeah.
I take it back. I immediately misread that situation.
Appreciate it. Cheers.
Well, it's a shame because it's being held in Twickenham, which is where you and I went to university.
It's where we met, buddy.
Which is where we met, and you taught me how to play Magic.
Yeah.
It was a Magic homecoming.
I know, but no.
And now I'm going with the rest of our play group, and they're a bunch of nerds.
They are.
And they're definitely going to be listening to this because Tim's on it, and they don't listen to it otherwise.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Hi, Will.
Hey, are you playing Simic again?
He's going to hate that. I will be at Command Fest London in Twickenham with a Magic homecoming. Please come up and say hello. I'll be the one with a big grin on my face.
And a big cutout of me.
And a big cutout of Nathan.
We should have planned that ahead of time.
Well, there's still time.
There's
still a week. This episode will be coming out in the next couple of days after we record it, so it will be before I head off to Twickenham. And then we're going off on a little magic retreat with our play group.
Yeah.
Tim, you were working, which is where we assumed you were working, which is why we didn't invite you.
Yeah. Four
That's
days.
awkward.
It's all right. I'm thinking about it. You know what? If anyone, not anyone, the first 5 people at Magic Fest Barcelona that come up to me and reference this podcast by name, I will have a "Don't Be a Dick" pin from Rule Zero to give them.
Oh, please don't tell us how few of those pins you give out.
These will be the first ones I've ever given out.
Amazing.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'm definitely plugging that in the episode description.
Absolutely.
Listen to the end for a special offer. We never give things away.
We never do.
We don't have a Patreon.
No.
We know you've asked for a Patreon. I'm looking directly at the mic now. This is weird having 2 people.
We're waiting to get sponsored, so that's why.
Well, yeah.
By who? Sorry.
Well, we could get a sponsor. I mean, I worked for Magic Madhouse, the card selling company, and I mentioned very loudly in that office for the 6 months I worked there, I have a Magic podcast. Did they offer to sponsor
Well, if
us?
you do it with that tone of voice, I'm not surprised.
Oh, shit.
Only dogs could hear.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, look, it was during COVID. I couldn't bring you into work. I'm sorry. I used to be a card grader. That's fucking wild. You used to work for Magic Madhouse.
We all did.
It's incredible how poor your card evaluation is then.
Yeah, I'm really sorry if circa 2022, 2021, you got some cards in the mail that were graded, like, good.
Near mint.
And they were fucking shit.
I'd play that for sure.
I needed money. The world was in a pandemic. Alright, we'll leave it there. On that note. God Christ. Let us know what you think of the Commodore Guff card that we got via our Twitter at MTFlavouring. Emails go to mtflavouring@gmail.com. Nathan, your Twitter is?
At Fox in the Moon.
Mine is at AndyManface. We've done that the wrong way around. That felt weird in my mouth.
It did.
Oh, cool.
Is yours Fox in the Moon?
No, I usually say my personal Twitter is at AndyManface. Nathan's, yours is.
At
And
Fox in the Moon.
Oh, Christ. Cool.
We are the robots. We fulfill our mould.
Thank you so much for listening. Tell this podcast to a friend. Tim, once again, thank you so much. Goodbye.
See you soon.